We are live.
Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, Coach Steve. With me today is the entire staff of the Fantasy Coaches here. Coach Jibs, what is going on, brother?
Not the entire staff, but it's going good, man. Got to see some friends, some family. Babies are being made. People are getting married. So I want to congratulate those couple of friends of mine, and back to being action, baby.
Absolutely. Love it. Absolutely. And Coach Sean, what is going on, brother?
Nothing much. Another beautiful day hanging out with my friends talking football. So, I'm blessed. I'm totally blessed.
Love it. Love to hear that. And I am doing well as too, guys. Hopefully your week 5 action was amazing. Hopefully you got some of those waiver wires that I suggested to you guys to pick up this past week. But now it's time to get back into the nitty gritty. It's Thursday night football, probably worse than last week. Maybe not. It might actually end up being better watch. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But like I said, we got to help you guys get some players that maybe it's time to start starting these guys, maybe some sleepers, or maybe it's time to send some guys to the bench for the week here with some busts. So we're going to get into that in just a second. Of course, I didn't bring up my news thing, so I'm just going to free ball it with that. So here we go with the fantasy news. All right, so you can't see my slideshow because I didn't put it in on enough time. That's my fault. But so here I'm improvising a little bit. So for new fantasy news this week, guys, players that have not practiced as of today, from what I've been able to find: Christian Watson, Rashard Bateman, Darrell Williams, T. Higgins, and Julio Jones. Guys like Tyreek Hill, who had that nagging foot injury at the end of last week's game, and obviously Jonathan Taylor went back to practice today. Cooper Rush is starting again this week, but Dak Prescott is making some progress. And Miami has also announced that Skylar Thompson is starting against the Minnesota Vikings this week. So all funds in that. And it looks like James Conner is going to be ruled out for week 6. So, guys, is Ito Benjamin, because Darrell Williams might not be there either, is Ito Benjamin a strong RB2 to play this week?
Yeah, oh yeah. Especially if Williams doesn't play. I was kind of expecting Connor to miss, and Eno Benjamin was on my radar. And if Williams misses too, then Eno Benjamin is almost a must start at that point.
Coach Jibs?
I do agree. I didn't know about this news, so I did have him as a sleeper. So I'll probably get into a little bit more detail about him and why you should start him over some of our bust, probably.
All right. Well, we won't ruin that for you. We'll wait till we get there. So. And of course, Skylar Thompson is starting this weekend. Do you guys have any concerns starting Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle this weekend? Are you going to let it ride?
I think you got to let it ride. They're the type of players that they can do enough with yards after the catch and the ball with their hands that, it sucks that obviously you have a lot less confidence than if it was Tua or Teddy Bridgewater. But, Waddle could take a slant to the house at any given time, and so could Tyreek Hill. So I think you got to start both guys if they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, as a Dolphins fan, Skylar Thompson, pretty strong preseason. He's got a heck of an arm. Kansas State's all-time leading passer. I mean, we'll see what happens. Again, didn't look great last week, but, I don't know how many quarterbacks can really come into a game and just lead the way for their first NFL game on very short notice like that.
Mm-hmm.
Very tough. Now he's got a full week of reps with the first team. There's probably some chemistry building there, obviously. We'll see what happens. I think you still have to start them. Don't expect the elite numbers that we saw in the first 3 weeks of the season, but expect something more in that mid-range wide receiver 2 value for him. All right. And, of course, Cameron is in the show. What's going on, Cameron?
Cameron.
And
All right. Coach has said, what's the better backup option rest of the season? KJ Osborne or Jahan Dotson, 16-man league, full point PPR. What do you guys got?
I'd probably go Jahan Dotson. KJ Osborne is good, but he won't really explode unless there is an injury in front of him. I mean, once Jahan Dotson's healthy, we've seen, he can be a startable asset. So
I'm going Doxson as well. Like Osborne is what he is, just like John said. He's just the third wide receiver, and we saw the first 2 games of the year. Doxson could be a reliable red zone weapon, and we know like he does have some rapport with Carson Wentz. I don't know how long that will be a quarterback situation for that, but I'd rather go with the unknown and the younger player with upside, especially on that deep ball ability.
Yeah, Cameron did say that he's holding on to Osborne because of the Adam Thielen potentially ever missing time, which I understand that. But his wide receivers are A.J. Brown, Amari Cooper, Brandon Ayuk, Osborne, and Jameson Williams. So just based overall, and I'm sorry I didn't put this up for you guys when you guys talked, but based overall on that, Cameron, is that like Jahan Dotson should be back next week. I mean, you never know, but he should be back next week. He'll give you more weekly consistent value than waiting for KJ Osborne to actually get that start. There'll be some weeks where Osborne has a big long touchdown, but personally, it's just that Commanders offense isn't great, but Carson Wentz is like 5th in passing yards this season. He's throwing the ball, he's slinging it every which way here. I would still rather hold on to Dotson, or at least pick him up if he's on your waivers potentially. Right now, if I was you, just personal opinion.
And Osborne's on by next week too.
Yeah, that definitely helps as well. All right, so let's get into what happened last week. Coach John was not here last week, but me and Coach Gibbs were. No, that was week 1. Never mind. Coach Gibbs wasn't here last week.
Yeah, other way around.
Other way around. Coach Gibbs was not here last week.
Thinking like, who'd I pick?
All right, so for me, guys, I went 5 and 6. The one Rashad Penny injury kind of cut him off of my day, but I had James Conner as a buzz, Drake London as a buzz, Hunter Henry as a sleeper, Jacoby Brissett as a sleeper, and Matthew Stafford as a bust. On the flip side, Coach John went 5 for 5. He had 2 injury stops with Logan Thomas not playing and Damian Harris leaving very early in the Patriots game last week, but he called Najee Harris and Tyler Algier as good busts, Deontay Johnson and DJ Moore as great busts, and George Pickens as a nice sleeper. So we'll hope to do better, guys. John's got the best record at 10-10 right now. So I believe I am the worst. So I might be no. I think Jibs, you're worse. You're 20 and 28. I'm 26 and 32.
I go outlandish.
Here's what it is, guys.
That's good though.
We give you guys big plays. So all right, let's get into our first play of the day, the RBs. So Coach John, give us your sleeper RB for this week, my guy.
So a sleeper RB I have this week, it's kind of tough because it really depends on, sort of situation, what you're going through, who you got, because it's people on buys and all that. But I actually really like Tyler Algier against San Francisco. There's volume to be had there. I think that there's, I faded him last week. San Francisco is not a better matchup. It's still tough, but Atlanta has proven that they just want to run the ball. They don't want to throw it. They don't want any they don't want to be progressive and downfield. And I think Tyler Algier is a safe bet to get, 14 carries. And not that he's going to have a huge game, but he's one of those guys that I think you can plug into your flex lineup and hope he gets a touchdown. But I don't mind Tyler Algier this week just based on the volume he's been getting.
All right. I like that there a lot there. Tyler Algier has he saw a majority of the work in this offense this past week. So there's definitely something good about him. So I think the 49ers will keep this game close, which will allow Atlanta to run the ball more still. Mm-hmm. Coach Gibbs, what do we got on your end?
For my deep sleeper, I'm going to go with Rachaad White. Pittsburgh allows the 14th most points to running backs. And my personal opinion, this game will be over by halftime. This is your blowout game of the week. Tampa Bay versus the Steelers. I'll expect him to get mop-up duties. We've seen him be a little bit more active than he was the first 3 games of the year. He's been about 35% more of the snaps, and we actually see him produce in the receiving game. And Pittsburgh, they do allow 32 receiving yards to running backs, but I also think he'll get a little bit of the share. And like I said, like if he does get mop-up duties, like he'll allow him to have a higher floor than you're anticipating. So Rachaad White, deep league sleeper, maybe some guy that's on your dynasty team that you're plugging in because of a bye situation.
Yeah, no, I like White a lot. I'm hoping he does kind of bounce back. Because I had him as a sleeper potential last week and didn't really stand up to par. But you're right. This should be a game where White gets more work, and if anything, they're just going to dump the ball off a bunch of times and win that way. So I do like that. All right, over to my first sleeper of the day. I went with somebody who really hasn't been great all season, and it's Cam Akers. And yeah, Cam Akers. But the thing about Cam Akers last week is that he was the only one to get a carry on the ground. He had 13 carries, wasn't a lot. He's the only one to do it on the ground this past week here. And again, he wasn't much involved in the passing game, or maybe as much as he maybe could have been, because obviously the Rams were behind in that game against the Cowboys. So he didn't obviously see that work, which is obviously a concern. But Panthers do give up the 6th most fantasy points to running backs this season. He's the clear 1-2 down back on this team here. And I believe that the Rams should be able to win this game or be ahead in this game to allow Cam Akers to run the ball more. We obviously know that Matthew Stafford should not be throwing the ball as much as he is. They have to find a way to get that game running. I think it could start this week. That's why I have Akers as one of my sleeper running backs. All right, back to Cameron real quick here. I've got a couple waiver wire claims pending. Which one should I take priority? Dropping Daniel Jones for Jared Goff or dropping KJ Osborne for Jahan Dotson? Burrow is my starting quarterback.
I would probably prioritize the Osborne, Jahan Dotson, because Daniel Jones and Jared Goff Jared Goff has played well in the first couple of weeks, but they're similar tier, quarterback twos to me. So, yeah, and it's a one quarterback league, so you don't really. And Goff is on bye. Yeah, I'd probably prioritize the Jahan Dotson move.
I agree with that, and just the fact that I see you have Williams, so I'm assuming you have an IR spot. And the fact that someone else could put Jahan Dotson on the IR spot or the out spot could give me more degree. I'd rather just get him as soon as possible, because Daniel Jones is going to be a world beater. Everyone's not going to be wanting to go after him, even though he has a good matchup this week.
Right. And again, you have Joe Burrow as your starting quarterback in a 1 QB league. It doesn't really matter who your backup is as long as he can play the week that Joe Burrow is out. I think Daniel Jones and Jared Goff are essentially the same. Goff, I might have a little bit more upside. He's obviously been playing better, but again, I don't want to. You're not going to start Jared Goff. There's a chance you could start Jahan Dotson at some point this season in a flex or a wide receiver 2 or 3 spot.
100%.
Yep. All right, John, back to you, my friend. What do we have for our second RB sleeper?
My second RB sleeper is A.J. Dillon. I think A.J. Dillon has been off to a slow start. People are really down on him. The workload has gone down, which is never good. But the good remedy for that is the New York Jets, because the New York Jets run defense is 27th in the league. So they're not strong against the run. I think that's where they're going to beat them on the ground. I think that's where Green Bay is going to be effective. I'm not expecting 8+ targets for Randall Cobb again. I think they're going to, establish dominance on the ground and take their shots when they have to. So I think this is a good bounce back spot for A.J. Dillon to get, even if he gets 10 carries, he can do a lot with that against this Jets defense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm hopeful for A.J. Dillon because I have been waiting for him to really stand out, but he hasn't yet. It's definitely a little bit of frustrating since I have him in so many leagues this year. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that this is a get right game for this run game for the Packers. They have been very inefficient over the last few weeks here now. So I'm hoping for that too, John. So all right, Jibs.
I'm praying for you.
What do you guys your second RB sleeper?
It is, Benjamin, and we already went into it. They lost 2 running backs, pretty much 2 running backs over the weekend. James Conner, Darrell Williams. They've been working out guys off the streets on their practice squad just to get that second RB2 for the weekend. And if he's the RB1, he's in a beautiful matchup because the Seahawks allow the second most rushing yards per game, 130 yards per game. They allow 45 receiving yards to running backs. And last time I checked, Benjamin's a good receiving back, so he could get that work in too. And icing on the cake is Seattle pretty much the last 3 running backs who they faced all had more than 100 rushing yards. Cordell Patterson, 141. Jamal Williams, 108. Alvin Kamara last week, 103 yards. It is Green's like go. Like fire him up. Probably could be top 12 RB this week.
Yeah,
Sky's the limit.
Hey, yeah, no, I'm intrigued about Ito Benjamin. I know I had him as a big pickup this week. Hoping they actually give him the full workload. That's my only issue. But I mean, if they're not, they're going to give it to a rookie running back in Ingram, or off the streets Chloe Komet, who just signed with our practice squad. So Ito Benjamin should be in line for a big day. So I do like that one. So for my second sleeper at the RB spot, guys, I went with Mike Boone. You can say Melvin Gordon's definitely a good start, but Mike Boone, the Los Angeles Chargers allowed the most fantasy points per game to running backs this coming season. They've allowed the 6th most yards so far. And in the first game that Mike Boone actually got more opportunity in, it was about a 60-40 split here on a short week notice here. And he had about 10 touches in that game, 7 on the ground, 3 catches in the air for like 20 yards. And he just kind of looked more explosive, just better back when he was in there, just looked better than what Melvin Gordon gave us this past week. With Russell Wilson's shoulder injury here, it might force the Broncos to have to run the ball a little bit more in a favorable matchup, especially for the running backs. So if you're looking for a flex spot this week, potentially, maybe you picked up Mike Boone, a couple weeks ago now, and you need someone for some bye weeks or some injuries concerns. Mike Boone might be able to get you like 10 to 12 points this coming week. So for me, he's my second sleeper RB. All right, so let's get over to some busts, guys. Who do we got as a RB bust, John?
Oh, my first one is, and this one, I almost went back to the well with Najee Harris, but I decided not to. I'm going to say Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's got a tough matchup against Philadelphia. He's had, 4 of his 5 games has been single-digit games. I just don't think this is a get-right game anytime soon. Where is it? He has not scored. This is crazy. In 5 of his past 6 matchups against the Eagles, he has not scored or gotten 100 yards. So maybe it's an Eagles thing. Maybe just Zeke just doesn't play well against the Birds. But I just don't see a good game coming anytime soon for Ezekiel Elliott. So I think, some people are kind of forced into starting him because of draft capital and the volume and all this stuff. And look, people were saying the same thing about Najee Harris, and my answer was 8 points doesn't do anything for you. Like 6 to 8 points is nothing. I'm okay with that on my bench. And it's like, well, the upside, what if they blow up? It's like, when was the last time Ezekiel Elliott had a blow-up game? When was it? I can't think of one. So I think now is time to just temper our expectations for Ezekiel Elliott. 100 yards, multi-touchdown games just might not be in the bag anymore. So I'm calling for a bust for Zeke.
All right. No, I don't hate that at all. I think there's a potential, especially in a tougher matchup against the Eagles, who have been really good against running backs this year. Obviously, they kind of shut down James Robinson a couple weeks ago. And I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping there's still good daylight somewhere there for Zeke, but I don't think it will come this week. So I like that there, John. Coach Shivs, what we got for your first RB bust?
I'll go back down John's well, and I'll go with Najee Harris.
Yeah,
I need to get some points, baby. I gotta get some points.
Yep.
But basically, like, I have Najee on a couple of teams, and it's just been horrific. Like, I haven't started him in 2 weeks, and I'm suggesting you guys not to do so either. Tampa Bay, second fewest points to running back so far this year. And Najee's appeal last year was, oh man, he's getting so many receptions. He's not getting third down work whatsoever anymore. Jalen Warren is running that snap share up. And even so, if like receiving yards were in effect, like the Bucs only had allowed 12 receiving yards per game. So like it's going to be tough sledding. And like I said, blowout game of the week. And this guy is going to be like done by third quarter.
All right.
Bust him.
Yeah. I mean, he was one of mine, so I agree with you 100% to everything. You just said.
he could have been mine too, so
Yeah.
he's super bust.
Ooh, super bust, exactly. All right, so I'm going to go back to that Sunday night game, or is it Monday night? I think it's Monday night game that John was just talking about here, and I'm going to go with Miles Sanders as my first bust of the day here, and I love Miles Sanders too, so it was really hard to kind of come with this, but the Cowboys are a tough matchup. They do allow yardage to running backs this coming season here, and Sanders has been good, but he hasn't really been elite unless he gets that touchdown. And the Cowboys have only allowed 1 rushing touchdown on the season to date. Their defense are kind of, bend but don't break kind of mentality. And if Sanders doesn't score that touchdown, it might be kind of a really mediocre day for him. Again, the Cowboys are 5th best versus running backs per game, which is allowing about 14 fantasy points. He does see the majority of the workload, but, obviously Kenny Gainwell is also in there as well. So it could just be a really mediocre day from Miles Sanders. So he could end up finishing it as a outside the top 24 running back. So he is my first bust of the day. We do have another question here. Let's see, from R.S. German. Trade away Hollywood Brown and Tony Pollard. Get CeeDee Lamb and Najee Harris.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would absolutely do that. Absolutely. I mean, I'll say something here. I mean, Hollywood Brown could end up losing his target share when DeAndre Hopkins comes back next week.
Mm-hmm.
CeeDee Lamb has been good, and he's getting potentially Dak back. Tony Pollard and Najee could be a toss-up, but I mean, you have the guy who's seeing the majority of the workload still for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and unless Warren really can eat into that workload, I mean, Najee should still be the main character, while Pollard's still splitting time, and I think he will split time all season with Zeke.
Yeah.
So it's a good trade.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I would. I mean, it's because again, you don't. The variable there is what does Hollywood's target share look like when DeAndre Hopkins comes back,
Right?
And so I think CD is pretty safe, and it can only go up when Dak gets there, and then Najee at this point it stinks because you're taking on Najee Harris, who is a descending right now, but I mean he's still a 15 carry guy, so it's hard to find them.
Right. All right. So we'll get to some more questions in a second here. John, give us your second bust.
My second bust, this one hurts because I like the player and I love the comeback story, but I'm sitting James Robinson this week. Past couple weeks, we've seen ETN get much more snap share. We've seen him be more explosive. The fantasy points, the targets are going that way. James Robinson quickly has been this very much like get a touchdown or not type of play. And so, I think that Indianapolis is, though he torched Indianapolis before, I think this is a tough matchup. Indianapolis's front seven has held everyone to about 3.3 a carry. So James Robinson's not going to rip off a big one. He's not just going to bust through and get a touchdown. So it's going to be a very plodding game. So, he gets 14 carries for 52 yards. It's like, and he's not going to get any targets. He's not going to get any, receptions. So, what does 5 or 6 points really get you? And to me, I think this is the perfect time to sit James Robinson. And I think ETN might we'll see the shift in that backfield pretty quick. I think ETN, we got to remember, this is basically ETN's rookie year. So him coming on strong in the second half just kind of makes sense.
Well, I hope not, John, for my sake. That's for sure. Hey, Kyle, what's going on?
What's up, Kyle?
Hey, Albert, what's going on?
Okay.
Ricardo's got a question. Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers, or Michael Carter, non-PPR?
Akers.
Ooh.
Ricardo, I was just talking about Akers as a sleeper this week.
Yeah.
Carolina Panthers are the 6th worst against running backs. Akers should see that ground game, and especially since it's non-PPR. Streaming standard, I mean, he just makes the most sense. I don't expect Gibson to be involved unless it's in the passing game, and Carter he's a wild card, but I mean, Breece Hall seems to be taking more and more work every single week. So, and it might not be in matchups that Carr gets enough points. So for me, it's Akers. Anyone else? All Akers?
No,
right?
I'm Akers. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm all Akers. I don't love.
I just want to make sure.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I don't
All right,
love
good.
any. I don't. Carter's a backup at this point. I think Breece Hall is that last game really established it's Breece Hall's backfield. Michael Carter might have scored, but if you look back at the game, it was just because Breece just ripped off like a 60-yarder and he was exhausted. He got taken down at like the 2.
We were there.
Yeah,
we were there
Loved
for
every
it.
moment of it too.
Yeah. And Ricardo, thank you for subscribing to our channel. Much appreciated. Jibs, you get back to you, my friend. Who's your second bust of the day for the RB?
I'm going with Kareem Hunt. And I was gonna say, so you guys hating? You want me to say
No,
Nick Chubb?
I needed a second one, and I was gonna go with Kareem Hunt. So go for it.
Sorry. Basically the Patriots allow 93 rushing yards per game. We've seen Nick Chubb be on this electric pace. Like, I'm not assuming that Nick Chubb will have a good game. I mean, I'm assuming Nick Chubb's gonna have a good game, which made me believe that Kareem Hunt will have a bad game. So, and they haven't allowed a rushing touchdown so far to running back this year, which is concerning. So, like, you got to think about that for Nick Chubb players too.
crazy.
But like, if that stat applies, I'm definitely going to say Kareem Hunt's busting out this week,
Mhm.
especially if you're considering him as like a flex on your bye weeks.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He is a touchdown. That's an interesting stat that the Patriots haven't allowed a rushing touchdown.
Or a receiving touchdown.
So
he's
at
not
all?
either at all
Damn.
To running backs.
to running backs. Nope.
I know. That's
Right.
my boys are good. I didn't even realize.
But yeah. All right, Jib. Since you took back-to-back my bust here. All right.
Bust champ, baby.
Okay. My next one, I'm going with Alvin Kamara this week. And let me tell you about Alvin Kamara playing the Bengals this week. The Bengals are allowing the fourth fewest fantasy points per game to running backs. They allow the fourth fewest yards. They have allowed only one touchdown on the season to running backs this year. They've actually allowed the sixth fewest receptions to running backs this year. And they've allowed the sixth fewest yards in the receiving game to running backs this year. So everything that Alvin Kamara does, the Bengals are really good at stopping. And I expect them, especially if, one of the two wide receivers, either Michael Thomas or Chris Olave is out, they're probably going to focus on one of them and expect them to try to throw to their mediocre core at wide receiver here. Alvin Kamara ran well last week, but it was still not a fantastic game out of him overall. And it's hard to trust the Saints offense on a week-to-week basis. I think there are good weeks with the Saints offense, but I don't know if this is going to be one of them. I don't know if we're going to see that same Alvin Kamara in a tougher matchup. He looked good against Seattle, but everyone looked good against Seattle so far. This is going to be a much tougher matchup. I expect him to have – you're probably going to end up having to start him. I get it, but expect a downer week than we expect out of him. Expect like a week one that we had 6 points, then he's having 20 this week.
You're a big Taysom Hill guy this week.
I don't know.
All this stuff does not apply to Taysom Hill.
It's all going to score all the touchdowns no matter what. So that's the issue with Kamara. If Taysom Hill's going to score the touchdown, so it is what it is. All right, so let's get over to the wide receiver sleepers here. John, who do you got for wide receiver sleepers?
See, this is the thing. I don't know if he's a sleeper. Obviously, he's not, because I'm going to bring up the name and you guys are going to be like, that's not a sleeper. But it's been someone who I think is, Chris Godwin is my pick. It's someone who I think has been, good, not great. He's had a couple, 12-point games, but he's due for a monster game against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh absolutely stinks. I mean, their defense is horrible. I think we watched Gabe Davis go 3 for 170 and 2. I mean, Chris Godwin's not that type of player. He's not that like huge deep target, but he can do damage. He can have a big game. And so I think Chris Godwin, the fear of Chris Godwin and this Tampa Bay offense and where it's going, I think 2 weeks off of a hamstring injury, now he's healthy. I think you're going to start to see him hit stride. So I'm starting up Chris Godwin with supreme confidence this week. I'm expecting, a 15+ game from this guy.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that a lot there. Honestly, I think he's been limited due to his injury, and they've said that before. They weren't going to overuse him. So I'm glad that I think this could be a game where he ends up breaking out. The Steelers secondary is atrocious, so it should be a really good game for a guy like Chris Godwin. Jibs, give us your first wide receiver sleeper. You're on mute, my friend, or your thing isn't working.
Alec Pierce.
Alec Pierce. All right, tell us.
I like that one.
He's been revitalized as an option over the past couple of weeks for the Colts and PPR leagues. He'll provide a decent floor for managers who are struggling to replace someone on a bye. The Jags giving up the 12th fewest points to wide receivers this season, but looking at their game log splits, it seems like the defense is more stronger versus their number 1 receiving options rather than the number 2 receiving options. Last time I checked, Michael Pittman, number 1 receiving option on this team, while Pierce would be the 2nd receiving option. So you'll see like week 1, like Terry McLaurin only had 2 catches for 58 yards. He did have a touchdown. We saw Mike Williams had 1 catch, 15 receiving yards and a touchdown. Like they're not getting that many looks, these number 1 receivers, but these number 2 guys, like Nico Collins last week came out alive. Brandon Cooks had a bad game. So you kind of get what I'm saying. Like I think this will kind of play into Alec Pierce, and he won't be a bad option for you this week.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see if he will build off that 8 for 80 that he had last week, especially probably taking the number 2 coverage in the offense while Michael Pittman's got to handle the 1. So I'm intrigued. Ricardo's back with another question. Terry McLaurin or Alan Lazar, non-PPR. He had a lot of bye week killers this week for him. So who do you guys have McLaurin or Alan Lazard this week?
I think I'd rather Lazard, to be honest, which is crazy. But I just think, Lazard has scored in, I think it was like, I think I heard a stat. Lazard has scored or gotten 80 yards in 4 of his starts. So it's like you're getting a good floor. You're getting a good base. You're going to get good 8 targets from Aaron Rodgers. And so, McLaurin, there it could bottom out on you. Whether Jahan Dotson plays or not, I'm just McLaurin. They're not using McLaurin downfield the way he should be used. So I'm just a non-PPR. I'm just expecting. So you need a touchdown for that person to really pay off, and I think Lazard is a better bet for a touchdown.
Jibs on the same page.
I'm kind of torn.
It's tough. I mean, that's a tough decision. That's a good one.
Wow. I might go with Lazard, but I'm also have concerns with maybe Sauce Gardner covering him. He's been in pretty lockdown corner. So, and I'm also always opposed to playing Thursday night football players. So I just have bad vibes.
I hate Thursday night. I hate playing anyone on Thursday night football. That's for sure.
It stinks. It stinks. Except for the defense. I don't mind playing a Thursday night defense.
Yeah, and maybe the running backs, but I don't know still. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Lazard too. Honestly, I know the whole secondary for the Jets have gotten better, but they have allowed still the sixth receiving touchdowns to wide receivers, which is 4th best on the season, 4th worst, whatever you want to call it. So I'd still rather go that direction. He's either scored a touchdown or gotten you over 80 yards since he's played this year. So I'd rather trust the guy who's attached to Aaron Rodgers than trust the guy who's attached to Carson Wentz. So that's what I'm going to do in this situation here. So especially in non-PPR, I think that if anything, Lazard's going to not see all the receptions, but he'll get the touchdown, which will help probably your fantasy day overall. So, all right. So for my first sleeper at wide receiver, I'm going with DJ Moore, because DJ Moore has not been a good wide receiver this season. It's the comeback train for me this week. PJ Walker is no friend to fantasy, but he did mention that he wants to get the ball to his playmakers. Well, DJ Moore is a playmaker. New look offense. I'm excited to see what changes with this offense with Matt Rule gone. They changed some things over there, and it's a favorable matchup. The Rams do allow the 5th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. They've given up a touchdown in every single game to a wide receiver this season here now, and I don't expect it to be Robbie Anderson. I don't expect it to be any other type of wide receiver. It's got to be DJ Moore this week. For me, I'm on a bounce. I'm going to buy a boarding pass and see what happens.
I mean, you could probably trade real low for him right now in a league, and hopefully
he's got no value.
Coaching change or quarterback, whatever is going on there will sort itself out.
I can't even get a first for him right now. That's how bad it is. All right.
Imagine having Mooney and DJ Moore on the same team.
I have that in multiple leagues. All right. The Joker. Full point PPR flex. Jeff Wilson Jr. or Dave Montgomery.
J-Dub Jr. for me.
Yeah. I love Jeff Wilson. Yeah, you can't. I mean, what was it? 17 carries last week. I mean, you can't get away from that. I think it's scary. Ty David Price coming back. He's probably still a week away. Them signing Tevin Coleman, but I think you got to stick with what's hot. And if you're getting 17 carries in an offense, you're pretty good.
Agreed. Jeff Wilson is for me too. Even in the full point PPR, because that's where Dave Montgomery's only been succeeding, is in getting 6 receptions a game for some reason. I'd still rather take the upside of Jeff Wilson in a very favorable matchup for him this week. All right. So back to you, John. Sleeper wide receiver. Who you got?
All right. This one's more of a sleeper. This one I feel better about. Rondale Moore. I think Rondale Moore is a good wide receiver this week. He's, we've seen him come back and have a little bit of value already. The running back situation we talked about earlier is crazy. There's multiple injuries. So, Kyler is going to look to throw, and it's against Seattle. They're beatable through the air. They are so they're 4th easiest. So that would be, 28th toughest against wide receivers. So, I think that they're beatable through the air, and it's going to be a over under in this game is 51. I would take the over. I don't really like either defense. So, I think they're going to have to score. And Rondale Moore right now is, someone who you plug into your flex and you might get a couple big plays out of.
Okay, I like it. Jibs, what do we got?
Devin Duvernay, and I just like the optics I saw last week and the usage. He had 24 rushing yards. He had 5 passes for 54 yards. We haven't seen Bateman practice yet this week. And the Giants, surprisingly, give up the third fewest points to wide receivers. I don't know how it's possible. Just like the Patriots are making the impossible happen. But I think the big factor is like they don't allow that many touchdowns, but they allowed 3 wide receivers to get at least 87 receiving yards the last 3 games, and the last 2 had 94 and 99 receiving yards in Mooney, surprisingly, and Randall Cobb. So not your name brand fantasy options, but I think Devin Duvernay could definitely be in the realm of possibilities, and if he's the number 1 option behind Mark Andrews, fire him up. I think he'll be a great flex wide receiver 3 this week.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that one. They got him involved in the offense there. That's for sure. This past week without Bateman on the field. So
What can I give an extra one?
No, because what if it's mine, man?
Okay,
After
I
I
don't
go.
think it'll be yours.
After I go. It might be.
Okay,
John,
go
what was
ahead.
yours again?
Rondell Moore.
Rondell Moore. All right. So before you go, Jibs, again, my second wide receiver sleeper is Darius Slayton for the New York Giants.
You're
Is that it? Yeah, I told you. Like, let me go. So obviously, y'all know Darius Slayton was somewhat of a low-end wide receiver. You could probably pick off waivers this last week if you were needy for wide receiver, maybe deeper man league, whatever. Obviously, because the Giants have no wide receivers. Basically, they're all just I think their top 5 wide receivers are all out with injury, and the Ravens give up the fourth most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. I mean, they've been just getting destroyed by wide receivers left and right. You know, he put up a nice 6 for 76 this past week here. Someone's got to catch the ball here. And I think Darius Slayton could end up putting another similar performance up for you this coming week, especially in full point PPR. It's probably a much better outcome for him. So if you're looking for that, low end, maybe high end wide receiver 3, I think Darius Slayton is the way I'm going to go. So sorry, Jibs. Got you on that one.
Can't say any better.
All right, so let's get over to the bus. What do we got at the bus here, John?
The first one is going to be Jerry Jeudy. I think, we all know the talent of Jerry Jeudy in a vacuum. We all expected Jerry Jeudy to have this, great season. But look, I don't know, like we've talked about it before. It's interesting that they came out and said that Russell Wilson's been playing through an injury, because it explains a lot. Because there was no way someone who was so good a year ago could come into an offense and have similar weapons, have similar, offense around him and just stink as bad as he has. I thought it was maybe Nathaniel Hackett. I thought maybe it was just not gelling with the team. But I think this injury towards Russell Wilson is legit. I think he's really having trouble throwing the ball and accuracy and all these things. And so he's going to go to the safe possession target of Cortland Sutton. And he's not going to take those deep shots downfield to Jerry Jeudy. So I just think Jerry Jeudy is a sit until further notice.
Yes, he is. I want nothing to do with Jerry Jeudy because he cannot actually catch the football. Without
that also hurts.
So,
that hurts your.
I don't like Jerry Jeudy on that note. So I like it. Coach Jibs, what do you got as your second bust?
Second bust probably will get killed for this one, but I'm gonna get CeeDee Lamb this week, and this is with Cooper Rush starting. This is with Dalton Schultz looking kind of shaky, and the Eagles do allow the 13th most receiving yards so far to wide receivers this year. But for an Eagles fan perspective, I imagine they'll put Slay on them. They'll probably put someone over top and let everyone else ride one-on-one. So, like, with that help, I think that will kind of limit him. I know CeeDee Lamb has been a target hog since Cooper Rush has been the starting quarterback in week 2, but I expect the Eagles to limit him. I think he'll have a bad game this week.
Oh, sounds like a biased Eagles fan over there.
Oh yeah, I do.
Just kidding, yeah. It is a tough matchup, that's for sure. So I definitely there's some concerns with CeeDee Lamb, that's for sure. All right, my first bust is Drake London, guys. Went with him last week, going back to him again this week here.
What am I gonna do?
I know. The 49ers got the 7th best team against wide receivers this season. Marcus Mariota has regressed as a passer each and every single week this coming season here now. Again, the team has locked up Drake London over the last 3 weeks now. He's got up 100 yards over the last 3 weeks. The only potential is maybe if there's some garbage time. But like I mentioned before, I don't think the 49ers are going to blow this game out here. and I don't expect them to have to throw the ball consistently, which will maybe help Tyler Algier get a couple more carries on the ground in a closer matchup. For me, it just that I think it's a bad day. Even with maybe Kyle Pitts coming back, we'll see. I'm going to stay away from this Atlanta's offense until I can see more consistency again. And it's not a good matchup. So, all right, Coach John, back at your wide receiver 2 bust. What you got?
This one scares me because I think this game is going to be a potential shootout, and anytime there's a high-scoring game, someone could blow up on you. But I think Juju Smith-Schuster is someone who I would sit. I don't love that the Kansas City offense is spreading the ball around like crazy. We're watching Sky Moore's snap count go up. Juju allegedly was playing through a hamstring injury last week, but I don't know what that has to do with just dropping balls because he had 8 targets from 3 receptions. I think that, we expected someone to step in, and we're idiots as fantasy analysts in the offseason. We don't know how things work, but we expected one person to step into this Tyreek Hill role and really flourish in an offense. And I just don't see that with the wide receiver core that they have. I think it's just going to be a spread them out. Travis Kelce is your one, and then you spread it out everywhere else. And so, the only upside to Juju this week is it's against the Buffalo Bills, and the Buffalo Bills, they're going to need to throw to score and keep up and keep pace. But I'm just not trusting, Juju. If you could sit him for someone else, I certainly would. If you can trade high on any sort of name value or spin it like, hey, he's getting the targets. It's bound to come any day. If you can kind of spin that narrative to somebody and trade them, then go for it. But I'm off Juju this week.
Yeah, no, I like that one. I thought about maybe potentially doing Juju, so I'm on board with you what you're saying. So I like it. Coach Shibbs, what do we got for your number 2 bust? Your mic's not working, sir. Still not working. No mic. You're on mute too. That doesn't help.
Just give me a second.
Oh, my bad. I can't read lips from a screen.
Okay, whatever. Chris Olave.
What?
And yeah, just temper your expectations, man. Like I know it's looking like he's gonna be the number 1 wide receiver this week with Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry not practicing, but the Bengals allowed the 4th fewest points to wide receivers. They only allowed 1 receiving touchdown to a wide receiver, and that was the spectacular Noah Brown in week 2 or something. So I think he has a good chance for volume. It depends on your league settings. Obviously in PPR, he's a better option. Half PPR, he'll have a modest day, but I'm not too sure he's going to beat his projections this week.
He better. I haven't started in I'm sure in one of my 10,000 leagues. All right, Nick. We got Nick Petronier. DJ Moore or Darnell Mooney this week, guys. Think of it as like half point PPR. Nick, if you know what the scoring format is, let us know. That might change maybe a little bit.
Man. The Bears offense, they're not, neither offense is great, but the Bears offense isn't passing enough for me to even consider starting Mooney yet. It's getting there. He's getting better. It's better than it was the first couple weeks, but I still would roll the dice.
Full point PPR.
Full point PPR. I would still still roll the dice with DJ Moore either way, but it's a safer floor with full PPR.
Mooney's averaging like 3 receptions at best a game. Moore's
throwing the ball
5
like 12 times a game.
I'd still rather
12 completions, 21 attempts. Definitely DJ Moore. Those new offensive changes they've been talking about is probably give the ball to DJ Moore. So, or Christian McCaffrey. Cut the slack. Get Shi Smith out of there, Stop playing around with Terrence Marshall.
Yeah, Shi Smith guy's like 15 targets this game, but 2 catches. It's ridiculous. But yeah,
like what?
Put in DJ Moore. All right, I believe it's my bust now. Yeah, all right. So my second bust at wide receiver is Mike Williams this week. Denver has been the best team against wide receivers this season. Second best in yards. They've only allowed 1 touchdown to wide receivers this year. And in 9 career games, Williams has averaged about 63 yards and has scored in about a third of those 9 games. Even last year, he averaged about 50 yards a game. And again, this is a strong secondary for the Denver Broncos here. And I'm just concerned this could be one of those games that Mike Williams kind of comes back down to earth. He's been on a fire streak in the last few weeks now. I believe he was sidelined on Wednesday with an injury, so I don't know if that's going to cause some kind of issues over this coming weekend, because we all know that Mike Williams has an injury history. So if you can avoid Mike Williams, I would be avoiding Mike Williams this week. I believe they played a Monday night game.
I saw illness today.
Illness. Well, making illness is, I guess, a little different, I guess, but still concerned about this Denver's defense. It could be a tough matchup for him.
There is whispers that Keenan Allen could come back this week too, so
yes,
he might lose a little bit of target share to that. So yeah, it's a good fade.
Yes, agree. All right, let's get over to the tight ends now. John, who do you have as your tight end sleeper of the week?
My tight end sleeper of the week. This one was tough because I don't love any tight ends, but Hunter Henry is one that I'm starting to focus in on. He saw a season high in targets last week, put up a respectable 7-8 point game, which without scoring a touchdown is, good for a tight end. I think he's, Jonnu Smith is not playing, injured. I don't know if he hit IR or not, but I know he wasn't out there. And so Hunter Henry looks like another quality sort of, streaming option you can put out there. I think you hope Mac Jones comes back, but even with Bailey Zappi, outside of Jacoby Myers, there isn't really any pass catchers that you want to start or that deserve, consideration. And I think Hunter Henry is, safe for 5 to 6 targets, and what he does with them is, it's enough. He'll get you your 40 yards, and you hope he scores a touchdown.
Hopefully, maybe not.
Maybe not, but maybe not against the Browns.
Browns have averaged about 4 points per game for tight ends. So the 40 yards, that's what you're getting.
Yeah.
I still, there's the potential because no Jonnu Smith, so he's gonna see the targets.
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes. So.
It's hard. This tight end sleeper thing is tough. It's not easy.
Give me a warm body, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
You're shooting Kobe.
Yeah.
What you got?
My Kobe shot of the week is going to be Will Disley. And statistics proved to be correct. The Seahawks versus Arizona Cardinals should be loaded with tight end production.
Yes.
Both teams have been abysmal covering the position. The Cardinals give the second most points. Seahawks give the first most points to tight ends. And to put it into more perspective, Cardinals have allowed the most targets to tight ends so far, second most receiving yards, tied for the fourth most receiving touchdowns. This also applies to Noah Fant in deeper leagues if you're in a pinch. But hey, if I had those two, I'll prefer Will Disley just because he's playing more snaps. I think he's averaging a 62% snap share so far this season. So, hey, 3 for 30 and a touchdown. Call it a nice day in the office.
Good. All right.
87 receiving yards per game, so he probably could get like 50 yards on those 3 catches and a touchdown.
He's been playing good. I mean, we'll see. Well, I like it. Don't hate it. Just so you guys know, today's practice for the Rams, Cam Akers was not there on the field. So they mentioned him as a sleeper. Also, be ready for Darrell Henderson just in case. So obviously, the Rams play in the afternoon games around this time now because they're behind us. So if not Cam Akers, then you got to go with Darrell Henderson. Just to throw that out there. All right. So my sleeper tight end this week is Evan Ingram. He's been averaging about 5 targets per game, coming off a really nice game, 6 for 69 yards. Colts allow the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends this year, 3rd most touchdowns with 4, and they've allowed at least one tight end each week to get at least 35 yards, and have scored in 2/3 of allowed a touchdown in 2/3 of their games so far this season. There needs to be some way for this Jags team to kind of get back on track. Hopefully it's Christian Kirk, but if not, Evan Ingram might have a nice solid day out of him. For, at least maybe 10 fantasy points, which that's all it really takes to be a tight end one nowadays. So,
yeah, for sure.
Right.
If you get 10 points out of your tight end, you should be happy.
Agree. Yes. All right. So we have a Twitter question here. Let's see, what is it? Would you rather rest of the season? Would you rather have Derek Carr or Dak Prescott?
Good thing about Derek Carr is you're getting the bye week out of the way now. So that's nice. But I probably would take Dak. I'd probably take Dak. Yeah, that's a tough one. Coming off injury, and after the bye week, maybe it's Derek Carr. I think Devontae Adams is going to get suspended for a game, which is crazy. But there's enough weapons there that Derek Carr can be serviceable.
We hope.
we hope. I just think
Waller too potentially.
Yeah, I just think that the thumb injury concerns me with Dak, and the fact that, I mean, they're playing it right. They're slowly bringing him back. They're not rushing him back because they don't need to. But I don't know. I feel safer with Derek Carr for some stupid reason, and maybe that's just me being naive.
I'm kind of in this similar situation. I had been rolling with Matt Stafford this whole year. Someone dropped Dak. I picked him up, and I dropped Stafford. I've been looking for the next guy, and I think I'm going to roll with Dak still. I'm just going to start Geno this week and trade him off.
Yeah, I'm with the Derek Carr train as well. I mean, even if Devontae Adams misses one game, I'm still liking what they're doing overall. I still think it's a really fair trade overall. So I'm sticking with Derek Carr on this one too. All right, we'll get to another question in just a second here. John, give us your tight end bust.
This one feels like it's cheating because everyone's kind of piling on this player, but it's Kyle Pitts. He's just has a tough matchup against San Francisco. I think that he's coming off this hamstring injury that's hampered him all week in practice. So, he might not be 100%. And so, you're getting low production, low target share, and now you're telling me you're probably 70-80% of your health. I just don't want anything to do with it. And I know people are probably stuck with Kyle Pitts because you drafted him high and you did all this, but he didn't play last week, so you must have streamed somebody. I would probably roll with that streamer again until Kyle Pitts, shows you something. So, it sucks because we all know the talent and we love it, but what's happening in Atlanta right now is not conducive to fantasy points, to big fantasy points in the passing game.
All right. I'd like it because he was my guy, so thank you for that.
Sorry.
Find another tight end bust. All right, Jibs, who do you got?
He called me a homer earlier, and I'm going with Dallas Goedert. Dallas gives up the 8th fewest receiving yards to tight ends so far this year. This is receiving yards, guys, not points. And their defensive unit has been very consistent. They haven't allowed a tight end to score a touchdown so far this year. No tight end has topped 50 receiving yards. Tyler Higbee had 10 targets and 7 catches on 46 receiving yards. And that's the highest they had this year. So I don't think Dallas Goedert with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith is going to get – he could, but I don't think he's going to get 10 targets and whatsoever. So he's going to have to make his receptions worth it. And he's been a good player getting yards after the catch, but those aren't really things that you can apply to a week-to-week basis. So I think he might just be in a little bit of trouble with this defensive matchup this week. So he might bust out.
All right. I like that one as well. That's not a bad one.
Homer,
yeah. Homer. All right. So for mine, I'm trying to figure out who I'm going to go with here. Oh, God, this is rough. I'm just checking one thing. I'm going to go this direction. I'm going Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst has been solid this coming season, but they do play the New Orleans Saints, who have been very good against tight ends this coming season here. They actually allow the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game to tight ends. They haven't allowed a tight end over 50 yards again this season. Just one tight end actually over 30 yards this season. And they also haven't allowed a tight end to score. Now, this could maybe change if T. Higgins isn't playing, but they've been just so dominant against tight ends this year. I would rather avoid Hayden Hurst and maybe go get a different option. Some of these sleepers that we might have mentioned who might be on waivers you could pick up instead of playing Hayden Hurst this week. So he is my tight end bust this week. All right, we have another question here. Trade Josh Jacobs and Tom Brady. Get Joe Burrow, Aaron Jones.
If it's dynasty, I probably would. But if it's redraft, I probably wouldn't. I might just roll with the flames of Jacobs and then Brady. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair trade. If it's dynasty, I make that trade. I'd rather Burrow and Aaron Jones. But if it's if it's just a pure redraft, I think I stick with. I mean, Jacobs is playing like a man on fire.
We traded Jacobs and Brady for.
Oh, traded Jacobs and Brady for
He traded
Burrow and Aaron.
Jacobs already. So
Oh,
how do you
okay.
feel about it?
Yeah, fair trade. I mean, it's a good value. I mean, I think, Brady and Burrow are both quarterback ones that you can start, and then it's Jacobs or Aaron Jones. I think you probably would rather. I mean, Jacobs has played crazy lately, but the snap share is going up for Aaron Jones, so you hope you get. Yeah, it's fine. That's a fair trade. It's a totally fair trade across the board. Like I wouldn't, both sides. Like I'd be happy with either one. So that's usually a good trade.
Any thoughts, Jibs?
I'm fine with it. I kind of would rather just stick with Josh Jacobs and Tom Brady. Like Josh Jacobs has produced. He's off his bye, like we already said, and he has some pretty good matchups moving forward. Brady hasn't had his whole cast ever. So like once they get that cast back together, I think he'll be performing a little bit better till the weather turns cold. So I think I'll stick with those two. You always could find a quarterback later in the season, and obviously trade for one too. So.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
still, Aaron Jones is phenomenal talent. He's gonna get a 40-point game sooner or later, and
Yeah, it's coming.
Burrow just needs to figure out how to work that cover too.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I prefer the Jacobs and Tom Brady side, but it's a fair trade, and if you're it's a good trade. You still made a good trade overall. Burrow should be fine. Aaron Jones should be really good. Maybe Josh Jacobs can't handle this heavy workload at some point, but still, it's a solid trade.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get over the quarterbacks. What we got at QB for sleeper, John?
My sleeper QB is Kirk Cousins. I think this is the week to start him. I think the Miami defense is beatable through the air. Justin Jefferson's going to have a field day. You can even start Adam Thielen. And so if you're starting both of those guys, then it's time to start Kirk Cousins too. So Kirk Cousins is very much a matchup-based quarterback too. He hasn't had more than 23 points this season, but this is the one that if he's going to have a big game, it's probably this one. So I would start him with supreme confidence that he's going to break that 20-point mark.
Okay. I hope he does bad, but
yeah,
he do very well this week. Coach Shibs, what do you got for a sleeper?
I want to go Jimmy G, and another player who hasn't had a blow-up game so far this season, but I think he had done against the Falcons. They give up the 10th most points to quarterbacks. They also have given the 4th most passing yards so far this season. So I like what I see in San Francisco for the skill weapons: Deebo Samuel, Ayuk. They have Jeff Wilson Jr. and Kittle. Has an amazing matchup. The Falcons, I think, give up the 4th most points to tight end. So that's another advantageous matchup to be exploited. So I think Jimmy G could end up with a good solid fantasy day.
Yeah, I like that one there. I'm hoping GBG can finally have himself a really good day. I had him as a potential sleeper for me, but I'm okay to switch it to another player here. So for my quarterback sleeper, guys, I went with Daniel Jones. Honestly, Daniel Jones should be in a fine play this coming week. I mean, the Ravens do allow rushing to mobile quarterbacks this season, I believe, if I'm not mistaken here. They allow the 8th most rushing yards to quarterbacks this year. And I've already mentioned how, a guy like Darius Slay could end up having a good game because of that secondary and how kind of on and off they are. I know they've gotten some people back healthy, but they're still kind of shaky for me personally. So I think Daniel Jones could end up throwing or even at least rushing for more often than he does usually. So I'm going to go with Daniel Jones as my QB sleeper. All right, John, and QB bust, who we got?
Tonight's quarterback, Carson Wentz. I think he's, dealing with that bicep injury. I think it's legit. I think he is not going to throw the ball downfield, which is all of his upside, because you're not going to get any rushing. You're not going to get much with his legs. And so Chicago's also had 5 interceptions already this season, and their secondary is 10th against the pass. So it's a tough matchup, even though the Bears aren't a scary team on paper, but I think they're going to have a hard time throwing the ball through the air and Carson Wentz. And, it's just I don't see the stars aligning for a big game, especially if Jahan Dotson doesn't go and Logan Thomas is banged up. It's just they become very one-dimensional and easy to beat. So I would stay away from Carson Wentz.
Okay, Carson Wentz it is. Coach Shibs, who do we got?
I'm going with Justin Herbert. Just like you mentioned with Mike Williams, Denver's defense has been stellar. They've gone through some injuries as well, but they only allowed one quarterback to reach 250 passing yards. That was Matt Ryan last week with 251. You see Geno Smith 195, Davis Mills 177, Jimmy G 211, Derek Carr 188 with his stellar offense fifth unit. So I think Justin Herbert might be in some trouble. They haven't allowed a passing touchdown in 2 straight games. And they only allowed 3 passing touchdowns so far this season. So it's a recipe for disaster,
All right.
if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have concerns with Justin Herbert. That's for sure. Hard to sit him, but you definitely want to lower your expectation on him. All right, we're almost done here. If anyone has any more fantasy questions, please throw them in the chat because we will be wrapping up very shortly. All right, so for my QB bust, I went with Lamar Jackson. That's more, I guess, of a beware too, kind of like obviously like Justin Herbert. Jackson, has only been averaging about like 17 fantasy points over the last 2 games here now. Not great. Maybe it's because Rashad Bateman hasn't really been there. So maybe Jackson just not getting that passing off correctly. But the Giants are pretty decent against quarterbacks, just averaging about 14.4 fantasy points per game. Haven't allowed a single quarterback to rush over 9 yards this season. Maybe Lamar Jackson can break that trend.
I think he will.
He probably will.
I think he'll get 9.
I mean, he just really hasn't been playing the elite side we saw the first 3 weeks of the season. And this is a tough defense, and they're a team that's been really good, surprisingly. So for me, I would just lower your expectation for Lamar Jackson. You're going to probably have to start him, but just lower your expectation for him. All right. So that is going to wrap us up for the night, guys. I see no more fantasy questions. So Coach John, anything you want to say before we get going?
No, it is I will put this PSA out there. It's week 6. This is when you start to really, we talked about it last week, but this is when you really start to know who's kind of a real contender, who's in, who's out. You start to understand what players are at this point in their careers. And so this is when I start to get very active as a trader. I don't wait till it's too late in the season. I don't wait until this. This is where you start to make your trades and either make a push towards being a contender or start looking to unload assets for young rookies and picks. But this is the time. This is the time to do it for sure.
Great motivational speech, John. Love it. Coach Gibbs, what do you got for us?
Hopefully we get some points tonight.
Yeah,
I'm praying.
Pray for a good game.
Will they beat the over? That's all I'm asking for. I'm not even betting it, but like a Thursday night football game going over points will be spectacular.
I'm hoping for Brian Robinson to just tear it up, and then it's going to be the talk of the whole weekend. I can't wait.
How about him coming out to many men? Did you see that video that was circulating Twitter? I'm like, yo, that's badass.
That was fun.
Yo, that's swag.
All right. So, again, we appreciate you guys all for tuning in, answering your fantasy questions. Please continue to come into the shows every Monday and Thursdays around the same time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to check out our website for more of our content, please go to www.thefantasycoaches.com. We got our rankings, we have articles, we have more podcasts up there like the Dynasty Coaches. And if you ever want to hear more about us, please follow us over on Twitter at Coaches Fantasy, where all of our content will be shouted out and any other news updates that we thought might be good for you guys. So thank you guys all for listening. Once again, we are the Fantasy Coaches. Take care and have a good one.